what do you think? I mean, you're going to get this movement will get smeared in the press, especially the left-leaning press, the Mother Jones, right, the Vox, the MSNBC. They're going to shit all over you, and they're gonna try and marginalize you, and from day one, and they won't stop. What is your plan to push back against that?
They've already come after us, and that's why they asked. That's why Chuck Todd asked Bernie the question. This is very revealing, actually, is in how threatening the establishment considers us. So that just days afterwards, Chuck Todd would ask Bernie Sanders about this in hopes that Bernie would dismiss it, and then to his shock and horror, Bernie Sanders would not dismiss it. And then NBC ran a headline. Anyways, they wrote an article saying that Bernie dismissed it, even just said, "I'm working in the party right now," and then, which was hilarious. And then MSNBC spent the entire next day running a ticker saying that Bernie Sanders rejects effort to draft him. Bernie Sanders to draft him. Kate Snow held a panel on MSNBC talking about whether the Democratic Party needs Bernie. And I just laughed. I said, "What are you talking about? You should be asking, does Bernie need the Democratic Party? Because Bernie is the party. You're just this little marginal, you're a faction of the Republican Party without Bernie." So yes, I mean, they're going to come after us. And they're going to come after me, as someone who's a visible representative of this. That's what the establishment always does. That's the way they came after Snow. They always try to make it about personalities. But this is about the idea. So keep that in mind. Like I don't want it to be about me. It's not about it. It's not even about Bernie. It's just about the idea of that we have this incredible opportunity that has opened up, Jimmy, with historical precedent to follow in the footsteps of the successful formation of previous major parties, especially the Republican Party. And Bernie's campaign also, Bernie started, this is really telling to me, Bernie began the campaign, his presidential campaign, with no money, no name recognition, a hostile media, a hostile party establishment, and an anointed candidate. Any one of those steps would have taken out a lesser candidate. Bernie succeeded because he had something that was more powerful than any of those things, all of them combined, in fact. He had integrity. That integrity was the source of his power. The fact that he'd been saying the same thing for 35 years at time, that brought everything else came from that. And so I think it's critical to remember that we're never going to outspend the billionaires. We're never going to beat them at that game. We have to instead rely on our principles, because that's what inspires people. Incrementalism doesn't inspire people. What inspires people is when we say, this is a big, bold vision, and that's what we're fighting for, and we're not going to hide what we believe in. We're not going to pretend. We're not going to come, 80% of the way to the establishment position before we've even reached a negotiating table. Instead, we're going to declare it loudly and proudly, what we believe in. That's when you create sustained movements for change. And that's what a new party, a movement to create a new party, could actually bring us.
So what you're saying, let me get this straight, Nick. You're saying that you don't want the 1% that makes up the super delegates. You're saying you don't want that money. You don't want the 1% money. You don't want Wall Street money or big pharma money. I mean, so what you're saying is you want to bring a spoon to a knife fight? Is that what you're saying, Nick? That's what I understand.
Yeah, well, Bernie proved that spoon is more of like a catapult, and he showed that we don't need that money, really. I mean, and so did Trump in a way.
Yes!
Trump was outspent 2-1 by Hillary Clinton. Like that's by $1 billion margin. So so Bernie proved that we really can run, and people do activate both in terms of donations and in terms of volunteering. when they have a bold vision to fight for. When you give them crumbs, they don't come. They're not interested in that. They're interested in a big, bold vision. They want something to strive for. And I look at kind of where we are now, Jimmy, too, and I see 2018 shaping up to be the exact same goddamn thing as 2016. It's just going to be a big fear-mongering fest of the Democrats saying, we are not Trump. How many times do we have to go through that before we realize that doesn't work? You got to offer something. People have to be striving for something, not just opposing something. That's what motivates people in the long run. That's what awoke the political revolution that Bernie started.
Well, that's what I've been saying. You can't beat Trump with nothing. You have to have something. And here, the Democrats still, here we are a couple of months after the election, they still have nothing. Their whole thing is, we're not Trump. They're still fucking doing, we're not Trump. Where is your agenda? Newt Gingrich, when they lost to Clinton twice, he got, at least it woke him up to like, hey, you know what? We need to have an agenda. So they got the contract with America with 10 points. I didn't agree with any of them, but they laid it out. It was on a piece of paper and they could show it to people. This is what we want to do. What the fuck did the Democrats want to do? Nothing. They don't want to do a goddamn thing. So they have no bold agenda. They have no big ideas. Half the country's poor. We're bombing 7 different countries that we know of. We're really NATO's ramping up and getting ready for World War II and World War III. And all they want to do is talk about minutia and nothing. They have nothing to propose to the people who are hurting in this country. They have nothing to say to the people who have Fight for 15. They have nothing to say to the guy who can't afford his medicine. In fact, they say the opposite. They go, we're going to keep it unaffordable for you because Cory Booker and the rest of the corporate Democrats are going to make sure that it's ensconced in law that you could not piggyback off the welfare state of Canada. They're going to make sure you can't get cheaper drugs. They're going to make sure that your health suffers because I'm bought by a corporation. And it's time for this to happen. I can't vote Democrat anymore. I'm with you. I'll just say this. The thing about you said that Bernie Sanders, any one of those things would have stopped any other candidate, except Bernie had what they didn't, which was integrity. Now, if you noticed, when Bernie decided to stop having integrity and decided to back a corporate warmonger, no one showed up to hear him talk anymore. He couldn't fill fucking 100 people in a gymnasium after he started to support Hillary Clinton. Nobody really talks about that. So you're correct, Nick, when you say that Bernie Sanders' integrity is what filled those stadiums. And as soon as he stopped, those stadiums emptied. So that's also if that doesn't make Bernie wake up to the fact that joining with these corporate Democrats is a loser. He's now part of a Democratic leadership team in the Senate that includes Joe Manchin.
Yep. And that's to Bernie's credit, Jimmy, because Bernie kind of he helped build a movement of people who are so committed to progressive change that even when they feel that Bernie Sanders is no longer consistent with that and is working with the Democrats and is working in a way that isn't producing that change, that they still that their allegiance is really to those principles. And that's why these millions of people, despite Bernie's best efforts, have left the Democratic Party since the election. That's why, and so I see us as progressives just kind of furiously struggling against the will of the people. I think what it should be, we should be following that will instead, and it seems so clear when you see the historical examples. And when you realize that the Democratic Party, far from actually opposing Trump, intends to do exactly what it's been doing for the last 40 years, which is facilitating the move to the right. That's what it's doing. Even at this extreme with Trump, this proto-fascist is still facilitating the move to the right with his cabinet appointments. Just wait, Jimmy. Just wait. You're going to start to see Democrats giving Republicans just enough votes in the Senate to put things over filibuster majority. Just wait for that. So that, because that is their mission. Their mission is not, it's not a typical electoral party.
Their mission is what? Hang on, you dropped out for Nick. You dropped out for a second. Their mission is what?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I was saying that their mission, like we talked about earlier, is not. to prevent progressives from winning.
Yeah,
and so and there's no more Chomsky brings up the fact that it's not even accurate to consider them two different parties. It's more like two wings of the same party. The Republican Party wouldn't be able to do everything that it does without active assistance in corralling the left by the Democratic Party. And so there's no more disagreement about the direction of our society in our political system between the two major parties, Democrats and Republicans. Especially when it comes to economic issues and when it comes to foreign policy. Instead, all there is there's a disagreement about the pace at which we should move towards this kind of authoritarian neoliberalism. And the Republicans say sprint, and the Democrats say jog. And that's about all. That's about the difference now between the two parties.
So you're going to raise money directly from the people. You're not going to take corporate money, correct?
So I'm glad you asked that, because I don't think it's my place, and I don't think it's Bernie's place or anyone's place, in fact, to design the party's platform and the party bylaws of the new party. I think that's up to the people. I think the people at the founding convention, when Bernie launches this, should be the ones who gather. It doesn't have to be in person, but everybody gathers and essentially deliberates on what the platform should be and forms it together. I think that's what a democratic model would look like. And so yes, although I think that in order to be successful, the new party will have to reject corporate money. It'll have to reject billionaire money. I mean, that's one of the things that's so frustrating about the DNC race, is that not even the most progressive candidates for the DNC race, exempting protest candidate Sam Ronan, oppose party politicians taking money from billionaires, from corporations, from super PACs in their campaigns. Neither do they oppose getting gifts from lobbyists when they're actually in office, nor do they oppose the revolving door between Washington and Wall Street. So I just look at this and I think, how in the world are we supposed to take our government back from the plutocrats when we aren't even challenging their mechanisms of power?
Oh, Nick, all right. You got an answer for everything, buddy. I don't know. You're such a smart mouth, these young kids, huh? Why don't you fucking grow up and sell out already? I mean, you're never gonna get a cushy job at a corporation doing like this. You're never gonna get invited to Martha's Vineyard. I'll tell you that.
God, so much for my Goldman Sachs job.
Yeah. Well, listen, Nick. So people can go to draftbernie.org. Is that what it is?
That's right. Draftbernie.org. Yeah. And what we've got there is we've got the petition to Bernie. We also came up with this this nifty idea of what's called a crowd PAC. And so people can make a conditional donation to the new party that will only be charged to them if Bernie actually founds it.
Oh.
And so this is a way for us to start kind of creating a for the new party that will only go to it if when Bernie finally says yes. And so those are the two big things that we're doing. We've also got kind of an organizing plan in the works as well that we'll be premiering. Jimmy, what's really inspired me about this is the response that we've got. I've read so many messages at this point from people who tell me, who write us at Draft Bernie, and they say, I was ready to give up. I was ready to disengage because I just couldn't take it anymore. It was like a full assault. The Democrats, the Republicans, so much negativity, so much negative news, the way that everything went. And they say, give me something to fight for again. And this has given me hope again, and now I have a vision, and now there's a path to victory, and I can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's really been touching, and that's really been inspiring to me. And I also want to say that we're an all volunteer effort. Nobody makes any money off of it. All of our money goes entirely towards spreading the word. I live off of my savings to do this because it was important for me to communicate to everybody that this is really about the idea. It's not about It's not about, making money or building a list or something like that. It's just about what I think we could do now.
Nick, I think people will get behind your idea without you lying about not taking money. Okay, that's okay. I'm teasing. Nick. I'm teasing. Listen, I would like to. Well, Nick, thanks for taking time. Everybody, go to draftbernie.org, sign the petition, make a donation if you want. That will only go into effect if Bernie decides to found the party, which would be fantastic. And Nick, I hope much luck in your endeavor. Thanks for coming on the show, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah,
Nick,
it was wonderful.
Hey, the next live Jimmy Dore show is March 4th. That's a Saturday. Get your tickets right below. The next one after that is March 20th. The shows sell out really fast, so get your tickets right now. Links right there.